Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, hopefully you're having an amazing day. I'm going to kick this video off with updates to the specifications of the RTX 40 series of graphics cards. There have been a couple of very interesting discoveries over the past day or so, and we're going to be going into that in just a moment. And then we're going to finish off with a couple of interesting things concerning the RTX 4090 Ti and some other bits and pieces that I've personally been hearing. So let's begin with the 4090, which is AD102-300-A1. We've known the number of CUDA cores and most of these specifications for some time now, 16,384 FP32, or CUDA cores if you prefer. 384-bit memory bus running at 21 Gbps, of course that's 24 gigs of GDDR6X memory. Now this is where things get quite intriguing. There have been a ton of rumours concerning the power consumption of this GPU, and according to the updates we've been hearing more recently, 450 watts. Now, when it comes to the clock frequency, the base speed is 2235, the boost is 2520, but the actual max, allegedly, is 2750. Now, honestly, there have been a ton of different reports concerning the clock frequency. In fact, just recently, Copty7 himself, which is where we're getting this information, even said that we could actually be seeing more than this. One of my sources has said 3 GHz is actually possible with some select SKUs, but what's really wishy-washy at the moment is how this is achieved. No, I don't mean whether it's stock or whether it's overclocked. Of course, we are talking about overclock, but basically, they were telling me that essentially the power limit went all the way up to like 120-ish%, which of course is around 550 watts. But what isn't exactly abundantly clear right now is, and I'm getting mixed information from different people, is whether this is going to be achievable kind of just as a standard, or whether that's going to just be for like custom designs, custom BIOSes, that type of thing. Either way, of course, it's going to be very interesting. And when it comes to clock frequency, it becomes even trickier as well, because as most of you know, the advertised speed, whether it's base or boost or whatever, is also quite different to what you can see in games. You can see, for example, right here, God of War running on an RTX 3080. I just took a couple of quick screenshots for you all. And you can see the difference versus the advertised speeds. Obviously, the power limit one, I still left the clock frequency at default, but just raising the power limit itself can make quite a difference. Speaking though of the 80 series, the RTX 4080 AD103-300-A1, 10,240 FP32, 256-bit bus, 21 Gbps, 16 gigs of RAM. And intriguingly, you may notice, 420 watts. Well, that's quite close to 450. There's no mention of clock frequency yet. I have heard from one of my sources that NVIDIA have really cranked the clock frequency up. Like, it's really into the stratosphere. I'm not quite sure why. One person told me it's because they don't have that many CUDA core, so they basically went with a faster design. I don't really know at the moment. I don't really want to say clock frequencies because they just said it was like really fast, and again I'm getting mixed information. It's going to be very interesting, to be honest, to see how the RTX 4080 fares. I think 16 gigabytes of memory is absolutely fine. I'm more than happy with that amount, honestly. But things get kind of weirder with the RTX 4070. Now let's start with the reverse first. That was kind of a weird statement, but 300 watts. It's AD104-275KX. X is a number. That's an A1 revision silicon. So the number of CUDA cores is not that much lower. It's around 30% lower than the RTX 4080. The primary differences here you'll notice, well, first of all, is that the bus width is much narrower, so we're looking at just 160-bit, and this of course also means that we have much less memory, only 10 gigabytes. It's also using GDDR6 rather than 6X. Of course, this naturally means that the Bandwidth is also going to be considerably lower as well, and there's no mention of clock frequency. Now, I want to just mention a couple of other intriguing things that I've personally been hearing, and this is not enough for like a really dedicated video. I'm just going to throw it in here. So first of all, I've had a lot of messages asking me about the RTX 4090 Ti. I think it's going to be next year. There were a lot of rumors, of course, that we were going to see the full-fledged, AD102 launch this year. I think it's going to be next year. I think really, to be honest, it's going to be heavily dictated by the level of competition from AMD. Yeah, I suspect it's going to be a very fast card. Honestly, I don't have any performance numbers for you all on the RTX 4090 Ti. Only that, of course, it's pretty much the full implementation of the die, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, of course, performance can scale linearly anyway. So even if, let's say for sake of argument, we had a benchmark, and let's just say, for sake of discussion, that the RTX 4090 got 100 frames a second, just for example. That doesn't really mean you can then just say, well, the 4090 Ti has all of these additional CUDA cores, because obviously without knowing things like what's the utilization of those CUDA cores and so on, it becomes quite difficult to know. Nevertheless, it's going to be a very intriguing part. Another question that a lot of people have been asking is what's going to be faster between Navi 3X and RTX 40, and I've got to tell you guys, I don't know. There are a lot of people online saying Nvidia have clinched it, they are going to have the advantage, and honestly, if you look at the performance targets of Navi 3X, they seem to have just they're just all over the board, and I think there's a reason for this. I think AMD are purposefully putting out misinformation on the performance targets. I do believe that the info that you're seeing on screen right now in terms of the specifications of Navi 31, I won't get into 32 and 33 too much here, I'll specifically focus on the flagship. I do think that those specs are most likely right on the single die, although I still have one or two people telling me that the the dual GCD is right, but I'm very much doubting that at this point. But yeah, I personally, and I stress this, I personally think that raster performance could maybe go to AMD, but I think Nvidia are going to definitely clinch it on ray tracing. With that said, I think it's going to be a very interesting generation, and whether Nvidia or AMD are going to be like 10% faster than one another, let's say, just for sake of discussion, in a game, let's just say standard raster performance, take ray tracing out the equation, let's say Nvidia on average are 10% faster, but then there's a ton of other questions you're going to have, like, for example, what about the cost of the product? What about availability? All of these other things. And hell, you may just prefer Nvidia, you may just prefer AMD, and so on and so on. But I think that's just about it for this particular video. It's been a faster one than normal, I know, but yeah, working on a couple of very intriguing projects at the moment, and I just want to put this quick update out because there's a couple of things, as I said, that I wanted to discuss, and I found some of this stuff really intriguing, particularly when it comes to the RTX 4080 and the 4070. I think that those are obviously going to be the sweet spot cards for many people. I'm going to be also very interested to see what the raw performance targets of the 4060 are going to be. I think many of you are perhaps going to want to upgrade to that, because assuming the performance targets are roughly on par with, in terms of the percent gain, compared to, let's say, the 4080 or the 4090, theoretically, the 4060 could be kind of a card which is really quite capable of playing most games at like 4K, without ray tracing enabled. Obviously, it's going to depend on how much memory that Nvidia plonks onto the card and all of this stuff, but I suspect that, especially if you're using a good upsampling solution, the 4060 is going to be, well, let's just say it's going to be probably I'm predicting, I could be totally wrong, and if I am, as you kids would say, I'll take the L, but I do think that is a possibility that this could be like the new Nvidia 1060. I think it's going to possibly provoke a lot of people to upgrade, and much the same thing as well for Navi 33. The real question is how much money per frame is it going to cost? And I've got to tell you guys, I have no absolute price information at the moment with the RTX 40 series. basically prices are too early yet. I mean, even if let's put it this way, even if Lisa Su and Jensen himself literally gave me an email and told me that these are the prices that we are currently aiming for internally, I would say, okay, that's great, but you could change your mind literally 5 minutes before the show. So yeah, I think that the next generation cards are not going to be, you're not going to be getting them, in a box of Kinder Surprise as like a little bonus. I think they're still going to be pretty expensive. I don't think they're going to be cheaper than the current generation's MSRP, introductory price. I would love to be wrong. I would love for them to be cheaper, but I don't know how expensive they're going to be. So I think some people are panicking that RV31 or RTX 4090 or whatever is going to be like, $2,000 US. I don't think it's worthy panicking yet. I think one of the positives that has been working for us as gamers is obviously the RTX 30 series as well as RDNA 2 has just been, well, let's just say facing a bit of a oversupply problem. So we'll see. With that said, I've rabbited on and off. Take care of yourselves, guys. Bye for now.